This video is brought to you by Nebula. Hi everybody and welcome to Amy Nolte Music. Recently, my daughter Ella called me up and said, "Mom, I don't think I'm going to be able to live with myself if I don't see the Eagles on tour. Can we please go?" So, a week later from that call, she bought a ticket, I bought a ticket, and we went down to San Diego. First we went surfing, then we got some amazing Mexican food, and then we saw the Eagles in concert. My family we are all big Eagles fans. Probably because my husband and I bought a Greatest Hits CD when we were first married, and it became the soundtrack of many, many car rides for us. The day before the concert, Ella and I sat right here and right there. She was at the piano, I was here with a guitar, and we just decided to play through as many Eagles songs as we could think of, all the ones that we knew that we could sit down and play. And we got to one song, and now it's just my favorite one. We played New Kid in Town, and as we played through it, and I didn't know that song, I never thought about what the chords were. It just, had always sat with me in a good way. When we played that song, we finished it, and I just said, "Ella, that's my favorite Eagles song." And if you would have asked me before that day, I might have said that it was Lion Eyes. I might have said that it was Desperado. Maybe Best of My Love, maybe Old 55. I've got a ton of favorites, but New Kid in Town hit me in a different way that day, and I want to talk about it. New Kid in Town was the first single from the Hotel California album. It charted as #1 in the US. The song is credited to 3 people: J.D. Souther, Glenn Frey, and Don Henley. Apparently, J.D. brought the song to the guys. They were all buddies in those days. J.D. Souther, Linda Ronstadt, Jackson Browne, all of them hanging out, sharing their songs with each other, exploring Laurel Canyon and the new kind of country rock sound that they were all into, folk music. Such a beautiful time in music history. Souther brought the chorus to Frey and Henley, and the 3 of them wrote it together. Souther was, of course, very close with Linda Ronstadt, also good friends with Jackson Browne, members of the Flying Burrito Brothers, and from what I understand, they all just helped each other tremendously in those early days and even throughout their career. Souther, Frey, and Henley had a fascination with the idea that fame and love were fleeting. You might be at the top of your game right now, but sooner or later, somebody else is going to come along, they're going to ride into town, they're going to tell you they're faster than you are, and they're going to prove it, knock you off the top. And we've probably all felt this at times in our lives. Maybe we have had a new kid come into town. I remember times when I maybe had a crush on a boy, and I felt like I was this far away from him asking me out when a brand new girl would show up at school. Kelsey in her tight denim skirt. And all of a sudden, every boy in school's attention went straight there and away from me, right? All the work I had done. I know we've all felt it. Maybe we've been the new kid in town. Maybe we've moved to a new school and stolen somebody's thunder. Happens, and I think it's cool that they were thinking about that. Johnny come lately. I wondered where that term came from, and it turns out in the 1940s there was a film by that name with James Cagney, but the idiom has been around since the 1800s. It's a newcomer who comes in and perhaps uses the knowledge and experience of their predecessor to take over the situation. After seeing the Eagles live in concert, I was reminded of a few things that make the Eagles. One of them is that, maybe more so than any other band, they take turns being the lead singer. Glenn Frey most often, Don Henley, Joe Walsh, Timothy Schmidt, even Don Felder and Randy Meisner. They all took turns singing, but somehow, no matter which one of them is singing, it always sounds like the Eagles. Kind of like Fleetwood Mac or maybe the Beatles in that way. And on this tour, Vince Gill has taken the place of Deacon Frey, who had stepped in to fill his dad's shoes for a while after he passed away. I love Vince Gill. I think he's one of the best voices on the planet, and he absolutely crushed it, both on vocals and on all the guitars he played. Another unique feature of the Eagles is the long vamp fade out at the ends of songs. So many songs just go and go and go on some repeating riff.
Oh, sweet darling, we ought to take it easy.
And that brings me to the third point I want to make right here, and it's the Eagles are meticulous. From what I can gather, Don Henley is the one who was largely responsible for this. I came across an interview of Don Felder talking about writing intros, playing solos just as demos, and having Don Henley be like, you have to keep that. That was money right there. We're gonna record it the exact same way, and then we're gonna play it the exact same way in concert.
We'd play off at each other, just like we've been doing at Joe Walsh and Friends and these other places where we had played together. We're doing that, and Henley comes walking back in the studio, and he says, "What are you doing? Stop it. That's not right." I said, "What do you mean that's not right?" He said, "Well, that's not like the demo." I said, "I have no idea what the demo was. I just made that up a year and so ago. I haven't even thought about that." And he had been listening to it over and over and over and over in his car, and that's what he wanted to hear. So I had to pick up the telephone and call my housekeeper, and we were in Miami, call my housekeeper in California, have her go through my cassettes and put it in a blaster and play it while we recorded it over the phone in Miami. And I had to sit down and learn what I just made up off the cuff, you know.
And occasionally they'll branch out in concert and do some improv. But for the most part, what you get on the album is what you get live. Even the way the lyrics are sung. I've been to concerts before, Van Morrison most recently, where, you know, he sang Brown Eyed Girl, and every line that he sang it differently than he had on his recording, and it kind of made it impossible for the audience to sing along with him. I think the Eagles get that. They know that the crowd is there to sing at the top of their lungs, as I did through most of the concert. And it feels nice to just predict that they are going to be there for you, just like singing along to their albums. New Kid in Town encapsulates all of these unique Eagleisms. Now, the Eagles are notoriously one of the hardest groups to talk about on YouTube because UMG will work tirelessly to block any audio from the Eagles that shows up on the YouTube platform. In order to avoid that, I have made my own recording with my good friend Jason Neubauer. He meticulously transcribed all of the guitar parts and the bass part, laid them down, sent them to me. I did my best to grab the Rhodes and the organ part just exactly as much as I could, and I laid down all of the backing vocals and lead vocals. We decided to skip drums. Much thanks to Jason for his expertise on this. I have no doubt that the way that I talk about this song will fall under fair use, but sometimes it's a hard fight. The rocking guitar player who replaced Bernie Leadon in the 70s, Joe Walsh, opens this song on keyboards. And somehow it gives that country rock feel right from the beginning. Then you hear Don Felder come in with the lead guitar. And he and Joe Walsh kind of trade ideas back and forth. It's a lovely give and take. And the song is in E major for the most part, which is a great guitar key. It's a very clean sound. Open chords, like cowboy guitar chords. Ringing open strings, classic Eagles. It's worth noting that this back and forth between Felder and Walsh is now back and forth between Walsh and Stuart Smith, who is playing lead guitar on tour these days. And instead of Glenn Frey singing, it was Vince Gill, who, man, did he nail it. There are all these little touches throughout the whole song that I think if you close your eyes and imagine the song, you can actually hear a lot of these little riffs that get played, right? Like, just little tiny tasty little things like that happen all the way through the song, and they build throughout the song, and they get a little bit higher sometimes, they get a little more intense, more frequent. But we've got Glenn Frey coming in with the vocal on this, and let's talk about this lyric. Talk on the street, it sounds so familiar. great expectations, everybody's watching you. I think that this whole first verse is about fame. I think it's about the Eagles and about maybe what people had come to expect from them. People you meet, they all seem to know you. It's true if you're famous, right? People probably did walk up to them just like they knew them all the time. Even your old friends treat you like you're something new. Probably Don Henley was responsible for most of these lyrics. I don't know how much John David Souther wrote when he took it into them. But the idea of this maybe small town kind of thing going on and, you know, somebody getting knocked off their high horse, I think it was a fascination that the three of them shared together. So it was probably a collective effort. And right at the end of this first verse, listen to the nice little lead guitar line. Even your old friends treat you like you're something new. You hear that little keyboard line? It's the only thing there was. Just this tiny, tiny little melody right there. Such a nice touch. Joe Walsh leads you perfectly right into the chorus, where we first hear the term Johnny Come Lately. Johnny Come Lately, new kid in town. Everybody loves you, so don't let them down. I don't want to neglect to mention that Don Henley comes in on the chorus with the high harmony to join Glenn Frey. Really beautiful. Johnny come lately and Johnny come lately. It's a really nice effect. The chorus goes from E to C sharp minor. Johnny come lately. That's a 2-5 in B actually, right? C minor to F sharp 7, and then there's this cool little line. I love that. Everybody loves you. F sharp 7 turns to F minor. So don't let them down. And we've gone back to E major now. We've done a 2-5, F sharp minor, B7. Now check out this transition between verses. It's so genius. And I think the reason that this transition needed to happen was because now we're not going to talk about the band anymore. You look in her eyes, the music begins to play. All of a sudden, we're not talking about this band and how famous they are. We're talking about you. You look in her eyes, the music begins to play. I don't know who we're talking about. Let's say we're talking about JD, right? Now he's with the one that he loves. Hopeless romantics, here we go again. That line, it's like, the fact that they're hopeless, that kind of brings about this idea of failure. And the fact that he says, here we go again, is maybe they're a little bored with things. Maybe they've already done it before. That's a cool way to paint this relationship that we're just now seeing in the second verse. Hopeless romantics, here we go again. How about this little bit? Sixth moving down sounds so good. But after a while you're looking the other way. After a while you're looking the other way. He's talking about himself, I think. He's saying JD's maybe looking at somebody else. And then everybody comes in with vocals right here. Those restless hearts that never mend. To say it's those restless hearts that never mend, kind of to me it shows like the whole band knows what it's like to have a restless heart. Check it out as the next chorus starts. We have a new instrument called the organ. Joe Walsh just lays down some nice pads. It sounds so hip. Oh, Johnny come lately, new kid in town. Will she still love you when you're not around? And we have our first ah of the song. That's one of the things I just couldn't believe during the live concert was how many ahs, how many oohs, and then how many lyrics everybody who was singing backing vocals had to have memorized. Like, how do you remember that you're coming in with ah here and ooh there? I don't know. Actually, I have a little bit of insider information from somebody who worked on the show telling me that those backing vocals for the live shows for the Eagles have actually been recorded ahead of time, and they play to a click so that they line right up, and the backing vocals are going to sound perfect every night. Even if somebody's a tiny bit out of tune on stage, which I think is a really smart thing to do, it makes everything pop and really sound just like the album, like I said. And then Don Felder makes his magic, and I'm going to let Jason play it for you because I think he nailed it. Got that country sound. It's got such a memorable melody, and probably during the concert when they were playing it, when Stuart was playing it, I was probably singing right along with it. Because it's just like a dang songbird or something, like it's supposed to be there. It's supposed to have always been there, and I love it. Now we've got the bridge. It goes to B. There's so many things you should have told her. That's a nice little gospel kind of feel right there with the 4 going to the 1. And something I heard Don Felder say was that typically the Eagles in the studio would lay down they'd lay down a scratch lead vocal, one that they would get rid of later and replace, and all of the instrumental parts. And then they would sit and listen for the times when there were holes to fill. Times when there was a place for a beautiful guitar line like, or a tiny little keyboard part like. But I love that. They had this groundwork, this foundation from which to build upon.
Then we started overdubbing. The best thing after you have a basic track is to put a scratch lead vocal down. So you know where to play and where not to play, where it needs accompaniment and where it needs something filled in. And those places where you're talking about those harmony guitar lines are always fill lines. They never step on the vocal. There are places where the vocals start singing and there's a hole there. And it's screaming for you to play something in that little spot there.
I don't know what JD is thinking here on the bridge. There's so many things you should have told her, but night after night, you're willing to hold her. I guess there's stuff in the past, right? Things that he never told her, and even so, he's willing to hold her, maybe let her cry on his shoulder, like they've got this super deep relationship, but he doesn't feel super deep about it somehow. Restless heart. What happens here? But night after night, you're willing to hold her. That's C sharp minor again. Now we're gonna go to F sharp 7. Just hold her. Now, that melody note is C sharp, her. Now all we're gonna do, and this is like my favorite part of the song, maybe it's the thing that made me say it's my favorite when I was playing it with Ella. It's gonna flatten that C sharp to a C. And we're going to pretty seamlessly modulate. Tears on your shoulder. We've got A minor going to D7. This song has a lot of 2-5-1s in it. And now all of a sudden, we're in the key of G. And listen how epic it sounds when they arrive there. Night after night, you're willing to hold her. Just hold her. Tears on your shoulder. Epic! And I don't want to neglect to mention Randy Meisner. Randy Meisner was largely responsible for the high vocal harmonies when you hear all of these vocals stacked. And what a gorgeous voice. He wasn't with the band all that long, really, but I love those recordings with him singing the high harmonies.
Tears on your shoulder. There's talk on the street.
There's talk on the street. It's there to remind you. Enter another brilliant Don Felder guitar fill. There's talk on the street. It's there to remind you. Doesn't really matter which side you're on. When he says this reminds me of another song that J.D. Souther wrote. The one about this used to be her town. This used to be her town too.
It used to be her town.
about the idea that there's talk in small towns. There are sides. People pick sides, right? And I suppose this has even happened with this Johnny Come Lately. There's been speculation that that might have been Bruce Springsteen, but I think it's been disproved. I don't think that was the case. I think it was just this idea, and especially because JD had the idea for years before, who knows how long before Bruce Springsteen even came on the scene. Doesn't really matter which side you're on. I love these little hits that happen right here. And the organ and the Rhodes hit them right along with the guitars. Along with the guitar that happens soaring over the top of it. Very understated, very subtle, so beautiful. You're walking away and they're talking behind you. You're walking away and they're talking behind you. Horrible feeling. And then there's a hole for another guitar fill. Love that one. They will never forget you till somebody new comes along. And I want to say that this line is Don Henley's because it's so perfect. They will never forget you till somebody new comes along. They will never forget you sounds so final, but it's not. The fleeting nature of fame, what a way to grab it. I think that line ought to be a quote and every band ought to memorize it. All right, what happens next is epic, and it's actually my husband's favorite part of the song. He's like, are you gonna talk about the down 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 part? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about it. So cool. Right? Everybody hits on beat too, but mostly what you think about is that the bass hits it, guitars hit it. But then we've got the organ and the keys and probably some more guitars hitting. Bam! Where you been lately? Down, down, down. Where you been lately? There's a new kid in town. And it's so epic. And it's the chorus. Again, it's the same, as Johnny Come Lately, new kid in town, right? But the lyrics change, the vibe changes, the intensity changes, and it's where you been lately. There's a new kid in town. It's like people are saying either to JD or to the Eagles or to both, hey, I kind of forgot about you. Where you been lately? Did you hear there's somebody new here? Yeah, I heard. Oh, and even though I didn't put drums on those hits, man, every time, right, Don Henley, killer drum playing. And then I don't really know who's talking. Everybody loves him, don't they? That's almost an afterthought. And I think it's like everybody's saying, have you heard there's this new kid in town? Everybody loves him. And then, Glenn Fry or JD or whatever is saying, yeah, don't they? And then maybe he just continues on to himself and he's holding her and you're still around. Like, what are you going to do? You're still here. There's just so much truth in it. It just rings true to the human spirit in so many ways. And as he says around, the band comes in with epic ahs again in so many voices. They're probably doubled. I didn't double my backing voices, but it's huge. Everybody loves him, don't they? And he's holding her, and you're still around. And we start what I talk about, the epic vamp at the end of the song, the repeated section. And the chords are E, G sharp minor, A, and then B. There's a new kid in town. And we do it a few times, right? There's a new kid in town. Just another new kid. And Glenn Fry has these little things that seem like ad-libs, but I'll bet he added them on the listen through after the scrub vocal, and everybody's thinking about what are they going to add to this song. Just little tiny moments of let's bring back JD's voice and have him say how he's really feeling about the situation. Just another new kid in town. There's going to be another one, definitely. And that you repeat a couple of times, then you get this change from A major, town, and it kicks it up a notch to really kick us off for now some ooh-hoos. Everybody's talking about the new kid. Not only is everybody talking about the new kid in town, everybody's even walking like the new kid in town. I think that happened when that girl Kelsey came to my school. I think everybody started getting the tight denim skirts. Why wouldn't they? Everybody's walking like the new kid in town. And right on the ooh-hoos, how could I forget? There's the organ gliss. And then we have this high E that rings throughout the rest of everything. But I love that gliss to get there. One of the magic things about a B3 organ. Or a Korg SV-1, as the case may be. Don't forget about the drums during this part. I love it. All the little fills, all the little crashes. Perfection.
There's a new kid in town.
Joe Walsh comes in, and then you'll hear it continue throughout the song. Then it raises at some point. Nice knowledge of the way that intervals work. There's a new kid in town. Glenn Frey doesn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Really doesn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. There's a new kid in town. And the lead guitar, I think it's the lead. I'm not so great about picking out guitars, but bong, 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 bong. Let's listen to Jason play it. Happens here, and really the little fills get to go to the keyboards, right? Joe Walsh takes over the little fills. The vocals are just monstrous, right? With all of these harmonies going on, and the guitar kind of takes the back seat and just offers support through this ending section, which I think is really awesome. And if you listen closely to Glenn Frey, you hear him go, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, right as they fade out. There's a new kid in town. It's almost like, to me, it's almost like you're resigning yourself to the fact that this is the way it is. It's the way it's always going to be. You might have to reinvent yourself, which the Eagles absolutely did and do. I want you to know that all of my knowledge, playing along with the Eagles, being able to rip off what they do and make my own recording, it all happens because I know about chords. I learned about chords when I was a kid, and they have taken me as far as I ever want to go. Even just the basic chords like these: E major, C sharp minor. And I've made a Nebula class. Very recently, I went to New York, shot a class, and I made everything I know about chords to take you from, if you never even heard of a chord before in your life, you'll be able to sit down at the piano and immediately make a major chord, immediately make a minor chord. I've got a system for teaching you how to do it. It's the way that I learned. It's the way that makes sense to me. And I would love for you to be able to see something like this on like ultimateguitartabs.com. That's all Ella and I did when we played these songs that day. We just opened up a website like that, and we saw the lyrics and we saw the very simple chords, and we just played them because we know how to build chords. I would love it if you could figure out how to build chords like I did, because it just opened up the world to me. It opened up a new world to me, a world where I didn't have to just reproduce what was on a page to my fingers. I could use my ears and later my creativity to play with chords, to make myself or groups of people or somebody else sound good. If you use the link that you see right here below me, you can get my discount, which will get you not only my Nebula class, part 1, by the way, part 2 is coming out soon, the other Nebula class that I've created about creating strong motifs for jazz improvisation, the other Nebula class I created with Adam Neely called Amy and Adam Play the Blues, but you also get the entire Nebula platform, all educational content, much like Netflix, except for many, many important things that are going on in the world today, things about history, things about art, things that make you think deeper about the world around you. It's all on Nebula. Great YouTube creators put their content on Nebula extra content, bonus content, deeper content, like my documentary about my favorite Brian Wilson composition, Surf's Up. I didn't really think people on YouTube might have the attention span to sit there for so many minutes and listen to me talk about a song that nobody really knows, except for diehard Beach Boys fans like myself, so it's on Nebula. Anything like that, I put on Nebula. You'll have access to the entire platform as well as my classes and other great classes, like Adam Neely's, about how to vlog your concerts. It's fascinating. Thank you for hanging out and exploring this masterpiece, New Kid in Town, by the Eagles and J.D. Souther. It was really fun. I love the song. It's been in my head for weeks now, and I haven't really minded. Take care, everybody. I'll see you next time on Amy Nolte Music.